Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 70 called Michelle B. This podcast is sponsored by Receptiva DX. Receptiva DX is a powerful test that has helped thousands of women who have experienced recurrent pregnancy loss or IVF failure. The test helps detect inflammatory conditions of the uterus that might be preventing you from becoming pregnant or staying pregnant. The most common underlying condition of a positive Receptiva DX test is endometriosis with or without symptoms. If you or someone you know has struggled with IVF, Receptiva DX may give you the answer and treatment protocols that you're looking for. Talk with your doctor about Receptiva DX because the journey is so worth it. Plus, guys, Infertile AF listeners are getting $75 off the Receptiva DX test. So all you have to do is go to receptivadx.com or download the app Receptiva DX, use code INFERTILEAF23, and you'll get $75 off. Thanks, Receptiva DX. Today's episode is presented by Belly. Belly offers modern prenatal vitamins optimized for fertility, prenatal, and post-pregnancy health. To learn more about how to optimize your fertility and pregnancy health, check out their vegan-friendly, dairy-free, non-GMO vitamins for both men and women at bellybaby.com. That's spelled BELIBABY.com. The best part, if you use code ALLIE15, you'll get 15% off your first month of either Belly Women or Belly Men. Again, that's code ALLIE15, ALI15 for 15% off. Thanks, Belly. You guys, I'm so fucking excited about today's guest. She is one of the funniest and realest people on TV and in the movies. You've seen her doing stand-up on Comedy Central. You've seen her hosting The Circle on Netflix, that reality show. You've seen her in movies like Isn't It Romantic and Always Be My Maybe. She's got a Netflix special coming out. She's got a book called Survival of the Thickest coming out, which I love the title. I'm so honored to have Michelle Buteau on today's show. And Michelle is going to tell us all about the long, long road to having her twins, Otis and Hazel. So we're going to get into all of the things: IUIs, miscarriages, IVF, the tumor they found on her pituitary gland, why she and her husband turned to surrogacy and how that all shook out. And also, oh my God, also you guys, discrimination and the downright racist and shitty treatment she faced sometimes when going to some of these doctors, which is appalling and so important. And I'm so, so glad we talked about some of that stuff because it needs to be talked about and it needs to be discussed and it needs to stop. It's ridiculous. So I'm going to shut up because she's hilarious and I'm not. Michelle, thank you so much for being on my show. I can't wait for everyone to hear your story. So without further ado, this is Michelle's infertility story. Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for doing this. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time, and I'm glad we finally worked it out and you had time. I know you're super busy, so thank you for taking the time.
Of course. You're welcome. I think what you're doing is very important. I think this is, the art of storytelling really just makes people feel less alone and a bit seen. And I wish there was something like this when I was going through what I was going through, because all I had was weird forums with people too, saying like the weirdest stuff. And I'm like, okay.
Tell me about some of the weirdest stuff that you saw.
I mean, when I would do a transfer, I don't remember how many transfers we did. Some women were like, I started bleeding. Is that a sign? They're like, just eat pineapple. What? And then some people, there are questions of like, when can I go back to work? Or were your levels okay? And it's just like, my levels really didn't go up much, but I was still pregnant. And so like, there was a lot of false hope and a lot of weird advice that I don't think makes sense. And then there was just like stories that I don't even know were true. Like there are women talking about hemorrhaging, but like definitely kept the baby. Like they still had a baby. And, I didn't even know what I was looking for. I was just looking for an answer, but I didn't even know that there could be so many different answers. And
Right.
everyone's like, good luck,
Yeah.
and, like I have more questions than I did before.
Yes, I agree. I could never find anything on those forms either that I could really relate to. There was lots of acronyms and lots of like abbreviations. And I was like, what the hell is everybody talking about?
Right, right. And that's just like a deep hole. And I'm just like, I'm just going to put Bravo TV back on and see what Lisa Vanderpump's face is doing, because this is not helping me at all.
Exactly. Exactly. So, well, let's start at the beginning. You've been really candid about the role that surrogacy has played in the birth of your twins. So tell me, when you were growing up, did you always want to have kids?
Yeah. I mean, I'm Caribbean. And so, kids are just a part of our culture. Big families, mixed families, halvesies, brothers, oops families, side families. So, all the types of families you can imagine under the rainbow and then some. So, I've always wanted children. And I'm the only child, so I always thought like, oh man, wouldn't it be nice to have a sibling, just someone to bounce off of?
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew I always wanted more than one, if possible. And even in my 20s, I couldn't imagine myself being married, but I was like, I'm definitely going to be a mom, but I don't know what my relationship will look like, but I'll definitely be a mom. So I guess I always knew deep down inside that there would be some sort of alternative family planning. I just didn't know that it would be in the way that it happened.
Mm-hmm. So what happened when you met your husband, and had you guys talked about that?
Well, we were super long distance for a while, New York to Amsterdam, and we were in love. We were engaged. We would talk about kids, but we had no idea how that would happen. And we were even like, oh man, we're going to get married and have, us time before we really start trying.
Right.
And we didn't even know sort of that there would even be an issue for us,
Mm-hmm.
because like no one has ever had an issue in our family that
Okay.
like at least we know of, because again, people don't talk about stuff. And now I realize why people don't talk about stuff, because no one knows what to say. And it's like, ooh, that's a horrible answer. I'm trying to have a kid. Well, maybe you should lose weight. I'm sorry, you're not a doctor. Stop. Well,
Oh,
we're trying to have a kid. Well, if you worked less, if you just wouldn't be as stressed. And it's like, wow, you're stressing me.
yeah. Were those
Um,
actual things that people said to you?
yes.
Really?
Yeah.
And were
Yeah.
those your responses?
Absolutely. I mean, I have a very sharp tongue, and so
Yeah.
I can really hurt someone's feelings. And usually I take it out when I'm doing stand up and someone heckles me. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, this is a really good place to let you know that I'm a professional and you're not. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of that. And I think it really hurt when my parents did it to me. My dad would say, you're having wine. That's, ugh. He would try and show me articles that he's found. And I just had to say to him, I think a year or two in, it's all a blur. I was like, if you want me to still talk to you, you can't be giving me this unsolicited advice.
Right.
You just have to love me. You just have to say, I'm sorry, baby, and that's okay. This
Mm-hmm.
will happen. So it was not only a journey, with my body and my emotions, and just a physical journey. And then like even between my husband and I, where we like would try to find joy, trying to get pregnant. It was also like a thing with family members and friends where I'm like, wow, I didn't even know you were that much of an asshole. One of my friends tried to hit me with, why do you even want to have your own kid? The world is full enough of people. And I'm like, goodbye forever.
Really?
Yes. And
Dead
she
to
also
you.
said, she also said, you should just try and adopt. And
Yeah.
I was like, God, I didn't know you were the accountant for my life. But listen, we tried to adopt. We went to 3 different agencies, and we would get deep into our application after spending money on different
Yeah.
parts of the application, for them all to say, if you're still trying to have children on your own, then we can't move forward.
Really? I've never heard
Yeah.
that before.
Yeah. I don't know what every adoption agency does, but we were looking at third world countries.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I don't know if the rules are different. I would just assume so. And I just kind of gave up because I'm like, I am tired and this wall is getting higher and higher.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know I read somewhere, tell me if this is true, that your mom gave you health insurance once for Christmas.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
true. I was just like a broke comedian, just going to Planned Parenthood. Thank you so much for my
uh-huh.
PAPs and just
Uh-huh.
doing whatever I need to do when I need to do it. The annual checkup.
Well, that's a
And
nice gesture.
it is. I mean,
Or did it put the pressure on even a little bit more?
no, I mean, I wasn't even trying, I wasn't even thinking about trying to get pregnant when she set me up with health insurance.
Uh-huh.
My dad worked in insurance all his life. And so she was like, this is an abomination. You need insurance.
Right,
And
right.
when she did that, it was just like months later, I stopped getting my period. And I'm like, uh-oh, I think I'm pregnant.
Uh-huh.
But I took a bunch of tests and I wasn't. And I was like, this is weird. And so I made an appointment and found out that I had this high level of prolactin. And the doctor said, well, either you have a cyst on your ovary or a benign tumor on your pituitary in your brain. And I was like, wow, thank you so much for these cool choices.
Right.
And so that's what happened and then I was like, oh, this is, you always hear those stories of people that don't go to the doctors because they think that they're going to get sick. And I'm like, oh, this is what happens when you get a health insurance. But I'm really glad I had it. You know, I was like, just don't buy me any more gifts that I don't ask for.
Exactly. So what happened with the tumor?
She's still there.
Okay.
She's still there making an appearance. I take medication to shrink her and to regulate my period. And yeah, that's sort of why I couldn't, we found out later that I could get pregnant, but couldn't stay pregnant.
Okay. And it was all tied back to the tumor and the pituitary?
Yeah. Because, when you have prolactinoma, a high level of prolactin, your body thinks it's pregnant. So, you're very far along and your tumor is getting bigger if you start to get blind. Also, you start to lactate. Just weird things. Your feet and your hands get bigger. It's a wild ride.
Wow. And that was happening to you?
It was happening to me. And I just sort of try to figure it out and live with it for a couple of years before we started trying to have a baby. Because I, again, would go to forums and people were like, I got pregnant on my own. I just had maca in my smoothies and lavender on my pillow.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to goop this up. I'm going to eat the pineapple with cayenne. I'm going to do all those things. And none of it worked. And it was IVF. Like everyone, every person I went to, every doctor I went to, they're like, you just need something stronger. And so I think I did an IUI. What is it?
Yeah. IUI.
Yeah. Oh God, it seems like another life now. Tried an IUI a couple times before and then just went full on IVF and was like, wow, I mean, I really feel for in this circumstance during a pandemic, what that must be like right now because you plan everything out, like if you're so excited to have a baby, just even the chance that you could, and you're spending all this money and you're doing all these things and people have walked out of the office pregnant and walked home from a hospital with a baby or whatever. You're like, oh, this is my moment. We're going to finally have this family. And then you start looking at the calendar. You're like, when's the birthday going to be? If my transfer is this time and I'll be pregnant this time. And you're like, oh my God, the baby's going to be a Capricorn. And you start doing all these things. And I can't even imagine these poor women going through this right now. And they're just like, it's just on hold indefinitely. That's so crazy. And even going to the doctors 3 times a week, spreading your legs, getting poked, getting your blood drawn. And then you walk down the New York City street and some guy has the audacity to say, smile. Why aren't you smiling? And I want to be like, I am bleeding from every part of my body right now. And I'm hopped up on hormones. You fucking smile. Anyways.
So I know all this stuff was really messing with your hormones. What was it doing to you, like emotionally?
Oh, emotionally, I was a wreck. I mean, I just didn't know it because, people think I have the flair for the drama. I don't think so. I think I'm just honest with what I'm going through in the moment always. And I have to be. Otherwise, I feel like I'm sinking, I feel like I'm always coming up for air. And I was like, wow, this is the first time I really just try to be strong for me and for everybody. It was the first time I really felt like I have to keep this to myself because I try to be open about it and everybody was a monster and they just sounded so stupid and it was so hurtful. So it was a lot. I mean, my husband would administer all my shots unless I was traveling. And he'd drive me to every appointment because he wanted to be a part of the process as much as he could since I was sort of going through it all. And I remember, God, it was like week 2 or 3 and the progesterone was kicking in. And he left a bunch of crumbs on the countertop making another sandwich. Like, I don't know who eats that much bread and cheese, but he's Dutch and that's what they're made of.
Yeah.
And I usually clean it no problem, or he'll like wait till the next day to clean it. But someone always gets to it. And I don't know why that was the straw that broke the camel toe for me, but I was like, this is it. You don't care. I have to do X, Y, and Z. And I start to cry and I'm like, I want a divorce. And I would like stomped upstairs and like slammed the door. And I was like crying. And then I took a shower and I was like, oh, that was really crazy. And then I started laughing to myself and I came downstairs and he was just like on the couch. He's like, you okay now? I'm like, yeah, I think it might be the hormones. He's like, you think?
So it sounds like he was able to roll with it at least and know that wasn't the true you.
For sure. And thank goodness for that because
is he pretty chill? Like it sounds like
he's very chill. He's always digesting cheese and bread, so he's just very chill.
Okay. So at this point, they were still thinking that you'd be able to have a pregnancy and have a healthy pregnancy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My doctor was excited and impressed that I could harvest so many eggs at my age.
Mm-hmm.
So this
and
is
how old were you at the time, if you don't mind?
This was like 35, 36 to 40 is when I was like, that was the whole time I was really just doing it. And, but everything was such a learning lesson. It was so annoying because it's like buying a car, it's like, it's so much information. It's really overwhelming. You should always bring somebody to the doctors with you because you can't remember it all. They won't let you record it because sometimes I like to record it and listen back. Even if it's about you, they won't let you record it. So annoying. And so I remember the first time I got pregnant and my first miscarriage, the doctor said, well, you have more embryos banked. We'll just screen them. We'll do the pre-genetic screening. And I'm like, what is that? And he's like, oh, that's when we test for abnormal, oh God, what's the word? Cells or something. Oh Lord. And I was like, well, why didn't we do that before? And then he said something like, I don't like your tone. And I was like, yuck. And so not only is it a thing for a woman to be at her most vulnerable in every chapter, to be a Black woman or any ethnic woman and going to a hospital, there's always this thing where people think you have an attitude because you question them. And so there's a lot of like, I have some, especially in my 20s, I would keep my voice in a certain register to make them feel comfortable. Now I'm just tired at my wit's end. Yeah. And so, and I don't have to tell you this. I mean, like it's horrifying for a Black woman to give birth in a hospital because nobody believes her. And it's a lot of that. And so, so I remember getting my blood drawn and doing my thing. And I was like, ow, that hurt, that prick. Like, was that deliberate? And so there's like all these things that kind of like swirl in your mind of just like, I have to go back in. I mean, I've started with them, but then race was sort of an issue. And I was like, I I don't even know how to handle this. It's just so much to unpack. And I really have to just thank God for comedy and doing a job where it just feels like a beautiful release, because I'm there to make people happy, but in turn, this is like feeding my soul too, because this is all happening, before 8 a.m. Just
right.
anyways, I'm really talking in a circle, but
no, you're not. I think that's so important. And if you don't mind, I'd love to talk about that a little bit more. We just did at Fertility Rally, which is the other piece of business that I have in the space. It's like a community and content hub, and we have virtual events. And we just did one about infertility and women of color. And our two guests were talking about, trying to kind of explain to people what Black women go through in this journey and how it's so different. And there's a lot of, racism and unfair treatment. So I think it's important to talk about that. And I'd love to hear more on that from you if you're willing to share that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the nurses are Black, a lot of the doctors are white. And so you will get a wink and a nudge and it's okay, sweetie. And just sort of the TLC that you need when you have your legs in stirrups going through something from one of the nurses, sometimes, if you're lucky. For the most part, you feel like you are a number, like you're waiting at the deli and you're like, this is my body. A lot of times the nurses at the front desk won't ask the white ladies for their credit card right away, but they want you to pay immediately because they don't think A, you can afford it, or B, you're just going to like walk out.
Wow.
And it's like, I'm not trying to loot, this office. Like I will pay, so it's just even down to the treatment when you walk inside, is stark. It's and what's crazy too is that my husband, who is a white dude from Holland, has never been in this position. He's never lived in America till he's moved here to be with me. And so a lot of this I'm telling him and he doesn't believe it. And then he sees it and he's like, oh, wow. And even when I bring my white husband with me, the way people change in the room.
Wow.
When they're talking to me is so obvious.
Yeah.
And so all of those things, to think that you are to be treated like you're not worthy, that you are a problem, for any doctor to say, I don't like your tone. It's like, you're not my dad. I'm going to take the car out tonight. Like, it's just,
I can't believe he said that to you. I've never,
oh my God. He also told me at one point, because we were making small talk and I ended up writing a joke about it, because how can I get through it? He told me that he was voting for Trump.
Ugh.
Because the election day was the next day.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of, so what are you guys doing?
Right.
And I'm like, going to the polls.
Right.
Yeah. And so my joke about it is that I farted. and I was like, this is what democracy smells like. Thank you so much, doctor.
Oh my God.
Just a little one. I mean,
just enough.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's great. But yeah, I mean, it's back to, the infertility and women of color issue. Like one of our guests was saying also that, in the culture, it's not talked about. And she was like, when I found out that I was infertile, my first thought was like, how could I be infertile? I'm Black. And we're supposed to be these like producers and breeders. And like, it's so interesting to hear all of that. So can you tell me, like, on the cultural tip, how it's felt for you?
Oh my God. I mean, it's almost as if like getting a tattoo on my face would make more sense than IVF or any alternative family planning, because there's a lot of that where you're Caribbean and you basically get pregnant from dancing with somebody.
Right.
And because you cannot get pregnant, something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with you. And that's the thing I was facing the first year when I was sort of open about my journey. Well, you eat too much of this. It's the animal fat. You gain too much weight.
Mm-hmm.
You sit down too much. You stand up too much. And it was a lot of like, IVF. Okay. Isn't that what rich white people do?
Yes.
And even when we were going into surrogacy, I mean, I just, the handmaid tale jokes and wow, are you going to get a boat too? It's like, oh, I didn't know
Wow.
your comedy was paying that much. You're so privileged. And it's like all that shit is a culmination of not only people's ignorance, but we're ignorant for a reason because no one is ever talking about this like, matter of factly, like, by the way, this can happen to your body. By the way, these are options you have. By the way, they're not legal here. That doesn't make sense, but this is why they're not legal. And this is antiquated. Like no one is really running down the facts anywhere, especially when you're young. It's don't get pregnant. And
Absolutely.
then when after a certain age, it's just like, why aren't you pregnant? And I'm so tired of answering people's basic questions.
Right.
You got to talk about something else.
Absolutely. So tell me about how long were you doing IVF? How long did you go through it?
5 years.
Wow. Okay. So when did you finally, and you said, I know you had at least one miscarriage. Did you get pregnant any more times than that?
I had 4 miscarriages.
Okay. So did I.
Wow.
Yeah. Miscarriage twins.
Yeah, miscarriage twins. See you on Etsy.
Yeah, exactly. Did you feel like with the first one, it was kind of like, well, everybody has a miscarriage, no big deal. And then they just got progressively more traumatic? Because that was my experience, but I'm curious to hear how you felt.
Oh, that's funny. I was really just crestfallen with the first one because I was 9 weeks in. We had a heartbeat. And I was like, this is it. Of course, this is it.
Right.
And so when we showed up, it was the first time my husband was coming into the room with me to see the heartbeat. And they had no heartbeat. And I was like, what? Keep looking. Let me turn to my right. Let me turn to my left. And they were like, I am sorry. And so I was also getting internet bullied at the same time that week from the show I did. I don't even want to talk about that. But it was just a very stressful week.
Yeah.
Obviously. And we had people in town from Holland. And the last thing I wanted to do was host. And I was like, none of this shit happens at a convenient time.
Right.
But there was that thing where people were like, yeah, it happens the first time. And then even the doctor was like, well, we should screen them. And I'm like, okay. And so, and this happened with a lot of my cousins and friends too. After the first miscarriage, you just want to go right in.
Yeah.
You just want to go right back in. And so when the second miscarriage happened, I was like, that's weird. Let's go right back in.
Yeah.
And when the third one happened, I was like, okay, now this feels crazy. Because the first 2, I don't know what you did, but I had a procedure for the first 2. Then the second 2, I just let it go naturally. Because I was like, I can't go through this procedure again.
Yeah. All of mine were early. So I never had a DNC. It was all just kind of passed on its own. And it was never super crazy bleeding or anything like that. I've heard horror stories.
So lucky. Yeah, it is. You feel like you are in labor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, that's when I knew I also had a really great partner because any person that can lift me off the bathroom floor multiple times is a good person.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a chemical pregnancy?
I did. And I did. I still don't totally exactly understand.
Me either. And if and I don't think they know either. They're just like, yeah.
I think it's when you get pregnant and then there's no sac. Like it doesn't even get to that point. It's almost like your hormones are registering that you're pregnant, but they can't find anything.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that that's what that is, but I could be wrong. And as I always say, this is not a medical podcast.
Right.
So no one quote me on that. But yeah. And then there's also like the miscarriage, which I always think is a weird term as well, which is also, I think, when it's pretty early on. But I think they all, I talk about this a lot. Like it doesn't matter when you have your loss. If it's, 2 weeks in, 7 weeks in, it's always painful. It's always awful, and traumatic. So I never want women to like minimize their own pain because they're like, well, I wasn't that very, very far along. It's like, no, it still fucking sucks. This episode is sponsored by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's why it's America's #1 meal kit. HelloFresh does more than just delicious dinners. Not only can you take your pick from 40 weekly recipes, but you can choose from over 100 items to round out your order, from snacks and easy lunches to desserts and pantry necessities. Everything arrives in one box on a delivery day that you choose. No worries, guys. If you're not a pro in the kitchen, HelloFresh's foolproof recipes arrive pre-portioned and easy to prepare in just a few easy steps. I have personally tried and loved HelloFresh. It saves time, it makes cooking so easy and fast, and everything I've tried from HelloFresh is super delicious. So here's the thing. Go to HelloFresh.com/InfertileAF16 and use code InfertileAF16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. I mean, I don't know if it gets any better than that. Again, you can go to HelloFresh.com/InfertileAF16 and use code InfertileAF16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. I know everybody listening is looking for fresh, easy, healthy meals. So guys, please check out HelloFresh and make sure that you check out America's #1 meal kit.
Oh, it still fucking sucks. And I don't think some people even realize that it never leaves you. You just learn how to cope and have it be a part of you. You know, I had 2 good friends that were pregnant the first time I was pregnant, and they ended up having beautiful boys.
Yeah.
And every time, I think they're 5 now. And I told my husband just a couple months ago, I said, oh, you know, so-and-so's kid is 5 now. Like our kid would have been 5.
Yep.
And he's like, why would you bring that up? Why would you? And it was just, I could tell he was getting into like I got to fix it mode. Be positive. And I'm like, no, I am being positive, but those are the things I think about, because you cannot help but wonder what they would have looked like and what life would have been like, and that. Absolutely. And of course it all happens when it's supposed to happen, but it is almost like walking around with a beautiful ghost that is a part of you.
Yes. Oh my God. I just got the chills, and I'm so glad you said that, because I think that's very common with, you know, women like us that have experienced loss, where you do that. You know, you see your friend's kid that's starting kindergarten, and you're like, that would have been my boy, or, you know, that would have been my. So I totally do the same exact thing. It's hard not to. It's like you're mourning the loss of what could have been. Yeah.
And people, I went to a few healers because everything was just so fucking traumatic. And a lot of people were like, name your loss, everyone's got a name. Don't worry about that. They have a name. They have a space in my heart, in my mind. And I mean, I think also that's very important too. I think it's powerful for women and men to name their losses, because then you have a little compartment, right? Of just like, oh, that's so-and-so. Okay. And, you know, hopefully that'll help them to keep it moving. But it's real. I think for men who are the partners of women who are experiencing loss, it's important to remember that it never leaves. It just gets a little bit better every year, or like, you know, or every happy moment at a time, but it never goes away.
Yeah, exactly. Hold that thought, guys. This episode is being sponsored in part by Thrive Cosmetics, an independent, woman-founded and owned beauty brand that specializes in high-performance makeup and skincare that's both vegan and cruelty-free. Now, we all know the holidays provide the perfect excuse to get a little more glammed up than usual. And Thrive Cosmetics is a new beauty brand I've discovered and really fallen in love with. And right now, they have some amazing discounted sets that are perfect for gifting. Plus, for every product you buy, they donate to help a woman thrive. Now talk about holiday cheer. Also, you guys know I love me a female-founded and owned company, and Thrive takes it one step further. Their mission is called Bigger Than Beauty, which means that for every purchase, they donate much-needed products and funds to nonprofit partners nationwide who are helping women face significant challenges to thrive again. All right, now let's talk about some of their high-performance products. Thrive Cosmetics products are made with skin-loving ingredients, and they're formulated without parabens, sulfates, and phthalates. And a lot of the sets right now include a free tube of Thrive Cosmetics best-selling Liquid Lash Extensions Mascara, which is one of my faves. This is the mascara you may have heard about that is sold every 5 seconds. It's flake-free, smudge-free, and clump-free, and it's got more than 7,000 5-star reviews, and it also won Glamour's Best Clean Beauty Product of 2020 award for the best mascara. I was wearing it the other day, and my daughter Ever said, "Mom, are you wearing fake lashes?" And I wasn't. I was just wearing their Lash Extensions mascara. So here's the thing. You can start thriving and help women in need today by going to thrivecosmetics.com/infertileaf for 15% off your first purchase. That's Thrive, CAUSE, medics.com/infertileaf for 15% off. Thanks so much, Thrive. So what happened with you guys when you finally decided to stop IVF? Was surrogacy the next step for you then, or did you think about other things as well, or how did it shake out?
We were all over the place because by the 4th pregnancy, I'm like, this isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm like, be positive, be positive. And I didn't say that out loud, but I'm like, you get the test and it's positive. You're like, okay, that's another hurdle. Been here, been there, done that. Oh, we passed 6 weeks. Okay. And like by 7 weeks, you're like, okay. And I think by the 2nd or 3rd miscarriage, we were talking about adoption. So we were looking into that, and that was hopeful until it wasn't.
Is that what you were talking about before with the third world countries?
Yes.
Okay.
And that didn't work out.
That's so emotionally exhausting too, because you pour your heart into those applications and your money, and you know that must have been really hard as well.
I mean, completely. And then we were looking into our finances, because we were just kind of like, do we sell our home? Do we rent our home? Do we get financing? What do we do? What are our options? And so when I went to the doctors that morning for the 4th one and didn't have a heartbeat, I was like, I am fucking done. I don't know who to be mad at. I am exhausted. The good news is that there are embryos banked and they're healthy. I got it was a constant, like, the glass is half full. Totally. Fucking glasses. Then I'm like ready to break the glass. And so
it's such a roller coaster.
It's such a roller coaster. And so I FaceTimed my mom, and I was, upset, crying. And I said, I'm just so done with this. Like, I can't put my body through this anymore, because my husband threw his hands up too. And he was like, you have to stop doing this. You're not yourself. I don't know if you've ever seen an episode of Intervention on A&E.
Oh my God. Yes.
When people are just like, their faces sunken in and they have scabs on their eyes and shit. And then at the end, they just look like, then they end up looking like, I don't know, Taylor Swift on a good day. You're like, what? That is what you look like? Right. So, that was me, but the opposite. It was just like bloat and bags. And it was like, Michelle is in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And so my husband's like, you have to stop doing this. And plus all my whole body was bruised. Like, the Lovenox, the Prolact, all the stuff. It was just like too much.
Yeah.
And so FaceTime my mom, tears in my eyes, said, we're going to try and refinance our house and look into surrogacy. I didn't want to, because that was just an even scarier road.
Mm-hmm.
where it felt like I was walking into a haunted house, and I've never even heard of haunted houses before. And I'm like, how many doors am I going to have to fucking open now? So sorry. Now I'm just cursing.
No, that's good. I love it.
But she was crying, and she was like, I've been waiting for this phone call from you to say that you're not doing this anymore.
Oh.
And your father and I want to dip into our savings to help you facilitate your dreams.
Oh.
And so it was like tears, tears, tears. And I'm like, amazing. And then at the end, she's like, but will the baby look like you? And I was like, okay. Okay. And then I realized that's one of the doors in my haunted house of surrogacy. It's like the questions.
Right. Because you're using, okay. So how many embryos did you guys have banked at that point?
Oh God. 4.
Okay. So you're using your own genetics, you and your husband, obviously, but
yes.
Yeah, I would love to move into the surrogacy piece of this because I was in Albany when you were lobbying with Andy Cohen, and I was at that event as well, or that day, that advocacy day, which was so cool to see you up on that panel and telling a bit of your story. The thing that baffled me was that people don't understand what, gestational carriers are and what surrogates are. So tell me about that from your point of view. Like, what did you know about it? And like, what did you come to learn as you were going through the process?
Well, I mean, I didn't know much about it at all. I mean, I knew that women were available to carry your child. Mm-hmm. I did not know what any of it meant. And so, again, the doctor did not explain this to me. The nurse did. Mm-hmm. And surrogacy was sort of like her expertise.
Okay.
So to my doctor's credit and the whole company, like they have people set up and they're really working towards their strengths. And there's so much I didn't know. And mostly it was all about the law. Mm-hmm. Now I'm like out of, it's sort of an out of body experience because it's not my body anymore. Number one. Mm-hmm. And number two, it's like we are talking about embryos and eggs and adopting and out of state and this and that as if it is just like purely a business transaction. Like, mm-hmm. Again, I'm buying a car. Well, for this amount of money, you can do this. And I was just like, well, what? So the fact that I'm even like figuring out what can happen, when you do have your own DNA and that, well, you've really, I mean, it's not that they were being insensitive. Obviously, they do this every day. But for women who can't harvest an egg and need to find one, my heart bleeds for them because that is just so much more expensive. Mm-hmm. And like, I remember even talking to a famous actress on set where, my surrogate was already pregnant and she's like, in front of everybody, like 10 minutes later, she goes, "Your surrogate, your eggs?" And I'm like, yeah. She's like, "Good girl." And then just sort of like sauntered away. I'm like, yuck. So,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm not ready to talk about it like it's fantasy football. And so, because it's still it's just a sensitive subject. And so when the nurse broke it down to me that I would have to pick a state that I'd like to find a surrogate, I'm like, what does that even mean?
Right.
And she's like, it's not legal in New York. And that was such a fucking blow. And I'm like, so now my body has let me down and now my state has let me down. Like, right. How far do I have to go? And again, it was like another door in the haunted house of just like, what the fuck?
Right.
Because then it's taking time off of work. It is, who is this person?
Right.
Is she going to be a Trump supporter? Is she going to, and like the only reference we really have to surrogacy is like that Tina Fey, Amy Poehler movie.
Right. Baby Mama,
where she's just like sneaking in a beer because she's not really pregnant. I'm like, all of this is horrible.
Yeah.
And so
where did you begin?
That's the thing. The good thing again about my doctor and his whole business is that he had a handful of agencies that he liked to work with, because he said that he's had really good experiences with these handful of agencies and that everyone's come home. And that's the thing. Everyone's come home with a baby
Mm-hmm.
they know how to get you.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to get you. They know how to say the words. And I don't even think he was dangling, you know, what is it, a carrot on a stick or whatever the saying is.
Right.
I think he was just about the business. And so I ended up going to this agency in Bumblefuck, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a long time just to even get a consultation. The consultation was a 4-hour drive, and we were out there for another 4 or 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And these women were, I mean, they were magical. They were so thorough. They covered every question that I could not even possibly think that I would have for every scenario.
Mm-hmm.
The owner needed a surrogate in the 70s.
Wow.
And yeah, and there was I don't even know where she went. I think she probably went to like Mars because she just like made it happen. I think she was also a lawyer, and then her partner was a 5-time surrogate.
Yeah.
So they had experience on both sides that you know, when people are just like, it takes a village. It's not your neighbor who's going to like, you left your bike over here. It's these women. It's
right.
the nurse who's actually like, are you okay?
Right.
You know, it's my surrogate. So yeah, I mean, the process was really crazy too, because they had somebody right away.
They did. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And so I was 3 or 4 months in the hole with her. And then the day of the transfer, the doctor found some fluid or something. And he was like, I don't feel comfortable transferring your embryos into her.
Whoa.
So then, yeah. So then I was like, oh, I remember getting this phone call on a New York City street after an audition. And I just fell to my knees in the middle of the sidewalk. And I'm just like, how is this happening yet again? This is not going to. And everyone's like, look at the bright side. You know, like it would have been more traumatic. And it's just like, all right, the glass is half full. I'm so tired of this glass. But yes.
And the fucking glass again.
The fucking glass.
Yeah. Oh, that must have been a devastating moment. I'm sorry. Oh, so
it was.
But you stayed with the agency, and then they're like, we'll find you somebody else kind of thing?
Yeah. 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 They kind of talked me off the ledge as well. And they found someone, and they obviously had to vet her. And I don't think people understand how hard it is also for a surrogate to be a surrogate. Like someone doesn't just show up and say, I'm here for money. These people are walking angels who, you know, for the most part, find being pregnant euphoric and easy and want to help someone have a family.
Right.
Like that is, I mean, the love in someone's heart to even do that. It's like, it's so beyond anything and anyone can understand that they don't even trust it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, it is real. And there are good people out there. You might just not be one of them.
Yeah.
If you don't trust it, then what's wrong with you?
Right.
And get your glass to be half full, bitch. Just kidding.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and also like we are out here to protect them. We're not taking advantage of anyone. That's
of course
crazy. It's like, it's, you know, it's a team effort. They want a healthy baby as well. And it, you know, for everyone to just want simply the best for us only makes me want to do and be my best for everybody involved.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand that concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, someone was like, oh, do you not want to gain weight? It's like, I have only been gaining weight since the 7th grade. So you have to shut up.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of misconceptions about it, a lot of like mythology surrounding it. I mean, when we were lobbying, I remember going into some politician's office and they were like, yeah, but like whose baby is it really? That's the question.
Oh my God.
we're like, no, that's not the fucking question. That's never the question. Like you're so off. They have such an antiquated notion of what this means. So
yeah, and it's really kind of gross too, to be honest, because it is just when people are just so small minded, where it's just very black and white. Those are the same people to me who are like adopt, but it's not even my flesh and blood. How can I love something? It's just like, okay.
Right.
You know, I can't. I'm so glad no one said that to me.
Yeah. So was it the second surrogate that you bonded with, and that's the one that you ended up working with?
Yeah. And, you know, I really wanted to protect myself because I was so full in with the first surrogate that I was like, okay, I'm so glad you guys found someone. Let me know when she passed all the tests.
Right.
And even then, I was still traveling for work, just threw myself into work. And I'm like,
yeah,
cool. Let me know. Like, it was probably like 5 months in for her to pass all the tests before we could actually start the procedure, you know, getting ready for the procedure and everything. And I even then was like, well, just let me know if she's actually pregnant, because I just had to be so far removed in my mind, at least. You know, like I still wanted updates, but I just could not. I just had to pray that this person was a good person.
Yeah. So had you talked to her at all?
I talked to her when she got the pregnancy test.
Okay. And then did you guys...
I was in Canada. So, yeah, I was working in Canada. So,
right. Had you guys transferred the 2 embryos?
Yes.
Is that what you did? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So how was it when you had that first phone call with her? And I'd love to hear a little bit more too about just, you know, you guys talked about in Albany how these surrogates become kind of family members to you. You know, you've got this forever bond. Obviously, they've done the most selfless thing for you. And it makes me so happy that people out there like that exist. So tell me about your relationship with yours, if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, it's a very weird position to be in, to have a relationship with someone that not only have you never met, and you're doing the most beautiful, emotional thing ever together. There was also no one else in my life that I could talk to out of my friend group, which is very large, that I could say, I am doing this. Do you know anything about it? And the only person I could talk to was Tig. And I didn't even think about talking to her about it till months in. Because you don't know how open people want to be.
Right. You're talking about Tig Notaro, the comedian?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Tig and her wife, Steph.
Right.
And so, and even then, if someone says, oh, it's great, do this, you still don't know until you go down that path yourself. So I was very mindful and thoughtful, because I know what those drugs are like when you're taking all those hormones. And so the first time I talked to her, it was very much like, how are you doing? And she talked about the side effects. And so we kind of like bonded over that immediately. It was just like, oh yeah, tell your husband not to leave any crumbs on the table, because the little things are big things. And then, you know, for me to work so hard for these embryos, but for her to experience what it feels like with them growing and moving, I have to check myself and say, at any cost, at every point, this is amazing and they will be here with you.
Right.
It is amazing, but you also have to check yourself and say, I'm a part of this too. I'm a part of this too, because the appointments are no longer about you.
Right.
They're about her. And so I remember that first phone call because I was walking on the streets of Vancouver and we were talking about how excited we are and who we are, essentially. And I'm like, do you have any cravings? And she's like, craving spaghetti. And I don't even like tomato sauce. And I was like, oh, my kid is in there. Because I am a pasta hoe.
That's awesome.
I can eat it cold, hot. It doesn't even have to be good. I love pasta. And so I was like, yes, that is my DNA right there.
Oh, I love that. So was there ever a moment that you were able to relax with this, or was it like not until you had those babies?
Never.
Yeah.
Never. Even when they came out, they're wheeled off. I'm just like, never.
Yeah.
I have been on edge for 7 years now, and everyone's like, are you okay? I'm like, no,
Right.
will I ever be okay?
Right.
There's so many levels to the panic and the anxiety, but also the beauty. And I guess that's what it is, you know?
Yeah.
It's like jumping out of a plane and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. And even after they're born, you can't really relax because then it's like, are they breathing? Are they going to be okay? And, you know, my kids now, I have a 10-year-old and a 4.5-year-old. My son was the one I had through IVF. And I'm still like every single day, I'm like, I still can't believe you're here. I'm never going to get over that. I'm never going to lose that peace, you know, which is good because you have a gratefulness that I don't know if you have, not you, but just in general, you know, going through when you've gone through so much trauma and so much loss, like, you know, I think women like us that have this common bond, like, will forever know like something in terms of being grateful.
Right. Right. And so to get back to your question, I just naturally started checking in with her every day because I wanted to know, yes, how babies were, but I want to know how she was. Because she's turning her world upside down.
Right.
Her and her family, you know? So how is everyone doing?
Yeah.
And so it really did feel like I had 2 families at the moment.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, your kid did what today? That's so cool. And her kids were wonderful. They would sing to her stomach.
Oh.
A lot of Bruno Mars. Real cute. And
so she's in Pennsylvania and you were in New York.
I was in New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you able to go to any of the appointments?
I went to most of the appointments.
Oh, wow.
But because I was filming a show called First Wives Club,
mm-hmm.
and it was just so great being busy, obviously, but I'm also like, oh, I can't make this appointment. And then my mom would fly in from Florida to go with my husband to the appointment so they could both go and see how the babies were doing.
No way. Oh my God. Your mom is the best.
My mom is the best. I should call her and not give her a hard time.
Yeah.
I know. Now that I know, it's like you never get it right.
Can we talk about the moment they were born?
Sure. That was really wild. And again, parenthood, or even entering parenthood for my husband and I, has always felt like we were knocking on a door saying, hello, parenthood, can we come in? We'd love to come in. And it was no different with the baby's birth because we had a natural birth, which was amazing because, again, my surrogate is a warrior princess. And she was like, we're going to do this. But the babies had to be born in the OR, and the OR is small, and each baby had 3 nurses. And so my surrogate got to pick who she was going to have in there with her. And it could either be me, my husband, or her husband, which was kind of a hit because it's like, wow, well, of course she has to be comfortable, of course. And it's like, what is it? Again, the constant reminder of just like,
yeah,
we have the rest of our lives together. And what's this moment? And her and her husband decided that I should be there.
Oh my God.
Which was really beautiful. And my mom was up for the birth, and my husband and I were like, okay. And so I feel really for him because there were so many steps where he's like, I'm cool, man. I'm going to be a dad. And so I'm just really glad he was so not laid back, but easygoing. Because it's like, it's so easy to become a bridezilla in this. It's just like, but and we're all just like, let's just come together and get this shit, to the dock. And so it was, again, amazing and beautiful in a way where I don't even know how to describe when you wish and want and pray for someone in your life so badly. And then even the sheer miracle of watching a baby come out of someone's body.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why people cry or faint in the delivery room, not because of the blood or the placenta. It's just like, oh, holy shit. That is a person.
Yeah.
I will never have road rage again. I cannot believe every human being is here like this.
Yeah.
And so there was also these moments though where the nurses are yelling at her to push and they're yelling at her not to push. And I'm just like, thank you so much for being here. I love you so much. Thank you. Like, I'm not going to yell at her. I'm not Jane Lynch in Glee. I'm not a gym teacher. And so when the babies came out, we were both crying and hugging, and it was just so beautiful. I don't even know that I will ever see anything that beautiful ever again.
Oh my God, you guys, I love her so much. Michelle, you are the shit. Thank you again for doing that. I really know you're going to help people and also entertain them, obviously. You guys, check out her book. It's called Survival of the Thickest. It's out 12/8. You can pre-order it now. Also look out for her Netflix special, which hopefully will be coming out later this year. And also, if you guys are fans of this podcast, which I hope you are, if you don't mind taking 2 seconds to pop on over to Apple and give it a review and a rating, it really helps us get noticed and keeps us in the forefront of people's minds. So again, thanks for listening. Love you all. Thanks again, Michelle. And I will talk to you guys next time.